Now, over the years, I've shot a lot of deer with a muzzleloader. Going back to one of my best bucks in the UP was a 10 point, and it was a real nice buck. I shot during probably the middle of December muzzleloader season in the UP of Michigan. I love hunting during that time. That's going back all the way to maybe, boy, autumn was probably 5. So 2005, 2006, and then does before that, smaller bucks. And I love hunting that time of year. I love hunting late season food sources, but also you can expect some second rut action. So shot a lot of bucks at that time with bucks just coming out to an open food source looking for does. Scrapes are opened up at that time. That's that early December time frame. And I've really come to rely on my muzzleloader and count on it enough that when we went to Saskatchewan hunting, that's what Jen and I brought last year. She shot her buck at 100 yards with the muzzleloader. And at the same time, deer in Wisconsin rifle, for example, this weekend I have the option. I'll sit with my bow, depending on where I'm sitting, or I'll sit with a muzzleloader. And I've sat with my muzzleloader almost every time. I don't think I've used a rifle in Wisconsin for several years, maybe 8-10 years. I love using the muzzleloader. I feel comfortable with it out. Even in Minnesota gun season, shotgun season, I use my muzzleloader. And I've shot deer out to 250 yards with it, 254. There's one buck here in Minnesota, 195 yards a couple of years ago in Wisconsin, 150 yards, 110 yards. You shoot them at all distances out to 250, and I feel very comfortable with that. So I want to tell you about my setup and some strategy behind this too, of when we're actually hunting the second rut and what you're looking for. But at the same time, if you're a muzzleloading purist and you're in shooting competitions and whatever else, you might want to leave. Because what I'm looking at is I want a muzzleloader that I can count on going off, making sure when I shoot it and pull the trigger, it's gonna fire. And I've gone a long ways. I've never used a flintlock, but I have used number 11 percussion, where if it got wet, it would keep your gun from going off. It was a lot less foolproof than we have today with the muzzleloaders. So I've gone from those days where I've never had a gun not go off, and I don't plan to. But during practice, I've had guns misfire or barely go off. And there's some lessons I've learned. I've hunted with somebody, my good friend Carl. He shot at a giant booner down on Ohio public land years ago with us, and he fired 4 or 5 .209 shotgun primers through his muzzleloader and never went off. And there was a reason why. In that case, he had not cleaned the breech plug, and he was using Blackhorn 209 powder, and you need to have everything perfect. You need to have Magnum primers. Everything has to be clean, which we're all assuming we clean the muzzleloaders. But at the same time, if you're like me, I'm starting to use my muzzleloader in early shotgun season in early November. And then I'm using it all the way to mid-December. During that time, I might shoot it anywhere from 25 to 35 times. I like keeping on it. I like knowing when I clean it, where it's going off. And so it's a pretty easy setup I've developed, and it might be a little dirtier, not as clean as some of the other muzzleloader powder, but at the same time, I can count on this, and I need to count on it. I'm not just playing around. I hear some people's setups where you do this, you do that, this has to be seated just like this, and if you do that, you can shoot out to 400 or 500 yards, but sometimes it doesn't go off, and it's finicky. A lot of those precision setups are pretty finicky. And I'm not saying they're all like that. There's some you can spend several $1,000s on, have dialed in scopes with all the trajectory built into it and ballistics. And I don't want to do that. I'm really happy shooting deer out to 250 yards and experiencing good accuracy. And I'll start by the setup I have. It's kind of interesting right here. Last year we went to Saskatchewan. I had my muzzleloader sighted in. We sighted in for 100 yards because they said the shots wouldn't be, they'd be 100 yards or less than anywhere we sat. So that means this was a sight in the other day that I did at 150. This is the first shot right here. That was since we went to Saskatchewan. And then I moved a second shot and third shot. And I moved the bullet. I just moved it over to the right, moved it up. And even so, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. So 5 inches down from center, and that was where we were sighting at 100 last year. I wanted to be, and I moved it up just a little bit to make sure it was following my scope and my adjustments. But really, those are a 3-shot group, and I also moved it clicks up and down, and this was at 150 yards when I shot. We sight in for 150 around here. That's where we zero in at. So even though I moved my scope 3 clicks to get it to around in here, then 4 clicks at 100 yards, estimated 3 clicks at 150. But bottom line is, I moved those clicks, and those are my last 2 shots. So those last 2 shots are about 1 inch apart. And if you figure in, even the whole group is 2 inch. It's a 2-inch group. And that's with moving the sight. So you can expect some really good accuracy, even with a quote subpar load and combination that, you know, some muzzleloader purists would scoff at. So I just wanted to explain what I've been doing for many, many years. We're talking decades with this setup, counting on it, never having misfires, and really enjoying my muzzleloader hunt. This is my current muzzleloader right now. I have 2 CVAs, Acura PR, I think they call it a plains rifle. It's a longer barrel. And this is the mountain rifle. I think, I don't know if it's the MRX. It might be, but Dylan has an MRX. It's really similar too. You see my Tacticam mounted on here. The Tacticam was mounted when I shot, because sometimes the load going through the barrel can be different or can throw it off. That might be account for the inch to the left, having the Tacticam on there. So I just keep the Tacticam on there for sure. I want to use it, and a lot of these are short shots. But bottom line is, I like this shorter muzzleloader. At the same time, I really relied on the CVA Acura for accuracy, and that's what we've been migrating to. We have 3 of them. They're all sighted at 150. Jen has one. We bought Dante one for Christmas last year. And then this is the Vortex Razor HD. It's my favorite scope. So on my older plains rifle, I had this scope on there, and it was all set to go. That muzzleloader's clean and ready. And I should have just got another scope, but I didn't. I took that one off, put it on here, because I love the scope so much. I believe it's 2 to 10 power. It goes down low enough that you literally can see the barrel in the bottom of the scope when you're looking, and it's on 2 power. Great for tree stand shots. I used this scope when I shot my muzzleloader buck a long time ago, sitting with Dylan during the second rut in the morning. He came up over the ridge, and we shot him at like 30 yards, 25 yards. First saw him at 40, 45, and pretty easy to get right on him, throw the gun up there. This is the gun I'm using to get that kind of accuracy. And the loads I'm using simply, like, people don't like these, but they're very, very convenient, and that's why I like them. I shoot all the time. I don't have a lot of time to play around, so I can put these in speed loaders that I carry in my pack. And in the speed loaders, I use the larger ones so that I can put some 209 primers in there. These are the primers we have. They were what was available at the store when we went to buy them. I bought a few packs of these. They have muzzleloader primers that are clean or burning, but they're not hotter. And so I want hot, regular 209 primers to make sure the powder goes off completely. Using 2 777 pellets. I'm only using, this is rated, I could put 150 grains through here and it flattens your trajectory. But anytime you add pellets or add powder, there's a potential for loss of accuracy. And so I want accuracy above all else. Shoot this muzzleloader at 100 grains of powder. It has plenty of knockdown power for anything, you know, deer-wise. So as far as extending the range, I'm pretty happy out to 250 yards. If I want to extend that to 300 or 400 for some reason, I would go greater. I'm using the Barnes T-Easy. They're the Spitfire T-Easy. It's a 250 grain bullet, or sabot. I really like these too because some of the rounds are really tight to push down the barrel. You don't want it so tight that you're ramming down the first one or second one. You want it to be fairly easy to push down that 3rd, 4th round, 5th round, because it gets dirtier each time that you shoot. These have been really good. Now, some of them are too loose. Like I've used power belts in the past, the older style, and so much easier to push down my barrel at the time. But then I went from 2-inch groups, 1-inch groups, 1.5, 2-inch, 2.5-inch groups at 100 to 4 and 5-inch groups with an occasional flyer. So I didn't like that. So this is the one I've used. I usually, like I said, I'll shoot 25, 30 times a year. And this is the one I really like that I've narrowed in because it's that perfect balance of being able to push it down the barrel and also being able to expect a reasonable level of accuracy. And I'd say that level of accuracy, and I'm not shooting off a typically a bench. I'm shooting off a board. I'm shooting off my knees. And, sitting down, I'm shooting off the corner of a table or something, but I'm using just padding. I'm usually using my coat folded up just for a decent place to really rest the gun. So I'm not using a bench press or anything like that, or a vise where I'm sticking the gun in and just pulling the trigger. I'm actually shooting like I would be out of a blind, or having a simple rest against a tree and seeing where I hit and expecting that kind of accuracy. So what I like about this is I know it's going to go off. I'll give you an example. I was using, I think it was a Blackhorn 209 prime powder. It's going back maybe 12 years ago, 10 years ago. And I was on the range in Wisconsin at the Conservation Club where I'm a member. And I took my gun out of there, and it had been cleaned properly before I used it, or at the end of the season. So I'm going out there kind of cleaning as I go, and which isn't advisable at all. And I'll explain why. But I got this all cleaned up, ready to go. I shoot, and it's just a little poof. And literally the sabot rolled in the dirt about 20 yards away. Then I had a misfire. And I was using the 209 primer, or powder. And so then someone next to me, someone I knew, he said, hey, try these leftover pellets, these 777 pellets, why don't you try these? Put them in there and bang, right away. Right by the center X where it had been sighted in last year. So even with a dirty breech plug, they still went off. And that was a direct comparison, meaning this didn't go off here, or went off poorly or misfired, didn't fire again, and then I rammed these down there and it went off. So a direct comparison, same day, same conditions, after the one didn't go off. So that kind of sold me on and make sure they go off. Yes, I can clean the breech plug more. Yes, clean the barrel more. That's all advisable. But when you're hunting and you're in and out, you're on a trip somewhere, you're coming back. We hunt. I use my muzzleloader for shotgun season in Minnesota, gun season in Wisconsin, or rifle season in Wisconsin, and then both muzzleloader seasons. I've used it in the UP Michigan when I went and sat with Jake two seasons ago on opening day on public land. Used my muzzleloader. I've used my muzzleloader down in Ohio for gun season instead of a shotgun. So you get the picture. I use it a lot, and that's why I shoot it a lot and keep on taps. I enjoy shooting it, and just kind of like number 5 down here, they're fun. I shoot a lot. You get to shoot a lot. It's fun putting it all together. And it's a light kick. So it really doesn't kick much with 2 pellets. I enjoy that too, because it's just pulling the trigger and having a good experience instead of something banging your shoulder because you're putting three pellets through it. Expectations. I talked about that. That's an easy 2-inch group at 150 yards with changing the sight to get those last 2. Those last 2 are 1 inch at 150. I would say my reasonable expectations, of course it depends on the shooter, but would be around 2 to 3 inch groups at 150 yards. And at 100, usually within 1.5 inch group, and sometimes 1 inch group, and usually 2 touching holes at that time. Now, 100 yards, you can kind of see. I'm expecting to shoot 4 inches high at 100. That'll put me even at 150, minus 12 at 200, and approximately minus 32 inches at 250 yards. Yes, it drops that much. You're launching in there, it's flat for a little ways, and then really tails off. And I've shot a deer at 254, and I literally had to aim, I think it was approximately 20 inches above the body, and let it fall in right to the kill zone. When you have a lack of wind, these are heavy rounds going in there, so less affected by the wind. And to me, very, very good accuracy, even out to greater distances. At that 250 yards, 200 yards, I expect a 5-6 inch group, somewhere around there at worst. And so 250 might translate into a 6-inch group, 5-inch group, 7 at the worst. And meaning everything's within that 7 inches with your holding in the center. So those are pretty good expectations to me with this type of setup. Meaning that a lot of times hunters can't shoot 2-inch groups at 150 yards anyways. That's pressing it for a lot of people, or a sub 1-inch group or 1-inch group at 100. So what I'm saying with this muzzleloader, it has the capability to me to shoot better than quite a few hunters out there to begin with. Now cleaning. I'm cleaning this thoroughly, taking the breech plug out, soaking the breech plug. I actually take a brush and clean around the breech plug hole and the ignition hole. And then I'm also cleaning where the firing pin is and making sure that's all dry, cleaning the barrel out, and that's how I start the season. And that's the way you want to put it away the season before. So you're starting over, you're just cleaning everything, making sure it's really clean. And then I'm going out and I'm taking a 209 primer, shooting that through just to clean and dry the barrel. And then I'm throwing my first load down there. Now that first shot, I expect to be a little off, but at 150 yards, we're talking 1 or 2 inches off from the rest of the group, not 3 inches, 4 inches. I like shooting my muzzleloader at game at rounds 2 through 4, but I have total confidence to shoot it on shot 1. So I'll sight it in for shot 1. It seems that 2 shot, 3rd shot, 4th shot really settles in. And then you start to notice the barrel starts getting dirty with those 777 pellets and those primers. And you start to, that first one you put down, it seats solid back against the breech plug. You can feel a positive stop. The next one's almost like a screeching stop instead of a brick wall. The next one, it's sliding a little bit more in. And by the 4th or 5th one, you have to push it down to hit your mark on your ramrod where you're expecting the same depth. And what you'll find is that bullet keeps sitting a little bit further up and up. And what I find, it starts hitting lower and lower with your shots. And so if you keep shooting, not only does the width open up, but also it starts dropping out the bottom. So you really start experiencing some poor accuracy. So then I'll clean it again. And when I clean it again, typically I'm putting a wire brush through it, 50 caliber wire brush, 5 times with a little bit of fluid on it for cleaning solution. And then I'm cleaning that out, just going down 5 times. And then I'm taking a dry cloth, slightly damp, and I'm doing it again. And I'm doing that usually 10, 12, 14 patches before it comes up dry and clean. And then I'm shooting again. I put the 209 primer through it, shoot again. So if I'm hunting somewhere and I'm on a hunt, I can actually push my pellets out, get the sabot out of the barrel, and I could clean everything like that again without even taking the breech plug out because I'm on a hunt. And what I find is I'm usually taking that and shooting 1 to 4 shots, and then I put the wire brush through 5 times, and then I'll clean it out with the patch anywhere from 10, 12, 14 times before it's dry and clean. And I can do that roughly for 15 to 20 shots. So 15 to 20 shots. And what you find is not only when you put each shot through till 4 or 5, your accuracy starts to get a little bit worse. But each subsequent 1 to 4 cleaning, does this make sense? You're not doing a deep cleaning, you're just doing a partial cleaning. I find that the accuracy seems to suffer every 4-shot group after, meaning you might go from a 2-inch group to 2.5, not 2-inch to 5. It's not drastic, but it's at the point where when I start getting an inch off or an inch greater group, 3-inch group instead of 2, which is 15 to 20 shots down the road, then 3.5-inch group, then I'll start the whole cleaning process over again. So most seasons I'm cleaning once to begin, once in the middle of the season, and then once to put it away at the end. So I'm looking at like I'm good for 25, 30 shots just with that partial cleaning, more like 15 to 20, and then I'm good for 25 to 30 throughout the season, just clean it once during the middle of the season. Hope that makes sense. It's a very easy cleaning regimen. I try to keep my guns inside at all times. In fact, I'll shoot this before I go out hunt. I don't like bringing it outside from the cold, inside getting that condensation. I'd rather leave the gun out in the truck, of course, taking the primer out of it when you leave the stand, but I'm leaving the gun out there, keeping the current temperature that you sat in. We leave our guns on the porch, and then we're going out hunting. So it's never that inside outside unless I'm cleaning it. Really important. You don't want to build condensation in there. That condensation can make those pellets gel on the outside and stick poorly. They start to gum up in there and you get poor discharge. You don't get a high percentage of grain going off. Now there's people out there that measure their powder. I used to do that. But I found this accuracy level and the ease of these and the convenience is why I do this. Now, if I was shooting match competition, I'd be cleaning this thing full. I'd be using probably Blackhorn 209. I'd use different combinations so I get the ultimate level of accuracy. But this is a highly acceptable amount of accuracy, and you can see the groups here to get the job done for whitetails anywhere I want to hunt out to 250 yards. Second rut. This is a perfect time to sit up over either going in the morning during the second rut, like we've done, sitting near a bedding area that you can watch a good distance. outside edge of a clear cut on public land, maybe some new scrapes that have opened up, watching that in the morning, and then certainly leaving that area and going out and watching an afternoon food source. Could be that outside of a clear cut on public land, could be that edge of a swampland where it meets the hardwoods, where young timber meets old timber, where everything comes together, upland versus swamp versus hardwoods. The more you have happening diversity-wise, that's where those deer are going to be seeking that thick cover later in the season, high stem count for a lot of browse during the day, and then they're going out to their afternoon food sources. Great time to sit during the second rut with this, and that's why a lot of times I'm using this in a tree stand in the morning, and then I'm backing out. Unless I'm hurting that movement, then I'm sitting all day, or I'm not going in the morning in the first place, but then I'm backing out, and that's where you get the shots at 250 yards, 195 yards like a couple years ago, 150 yards, 110 yards, 150 yards in the UP a long time ago, where you're backing off. And why sit 20 yards away from a food source when you can sit 50 to 75 and get in and out of that food source without ever spooking a deer? That's kind of the name of the game, and that's where even food plots, a lot of our food plots don't extend for 400 yards, or none of them. So that means that I can get into a safe position in a blinder stand, watch the entire food plot. Even if I have deer on the field, I can get out, and that's what you need for late season. But heck, I'm using this from mid-season rut time all the way in through late season, and I've come to rely on my muzzleloader over the last decades, and really enjoy muzzleloader hunting, and I hope you do too. I hope this system works for you. I think if you try it, it will work for you. I'm not saying there's not better accuracy. I'm not saying that someone else might say, oh, you got to do this cleaning. I don't even know what CVA recommends, but this works for me. It's worked for many years. Well, the one thing I can tell you is to really look at cleaning and taking out your firing pin every year and cleaning that, soaking that, because what can happen is that firing pin can stick out. What ends up happening is the fire pin can go out, you clean your gun, reload it, even put a primer through it, and all of a sudden it sticks at one point. Maybe you've been hunting high moisture, weather, whatever the reason. You load it, your gun's loaded, you put a primer in there, and you go to snap it up, snap it back. What happens is that firing pin sticking out, it catches a 209 primer and makes it go off wherever you were putting that load in. So if it's on your porch, in your truck, against your truck, out in the stand, it goes off, which is a really bad thing. So always keep your muzzleloader pointed away when you're putting that primer in. Always consider and make sure you're cleaning your firing pin. And I'm not kidding, this is fun to me. I like shooting this, different than a rifle. Rifle, just go out and shoot and make sure it's sighted in. And I'm not saying you can't have fun shooting any gun, but these muzzleloaders are a blast, literally. They're something that I've come to rely on for decades, and I know you can too. This is an easy process for you. And boy, hunting the second rut, late season food sources is what it's all about with muzzleloader hunting. And I hope that you can take advantage of it this season. I appreciate you guys watching the YouTube channel, but I don't know if everyone knows everything that we have to offer, whether it's on whitetailhabitatsolutions.com, our website, our WHS Wildlife Blends, our seed company. Also Instagram you can check out. I'm very active on Instagram, putting strategies on there, photos of what we do every day. Much more active there than Facebook. But our seed, web classes, books, clients, articles. I have over 600 articles on whitetailhabitatsolutions.com, everything whitetail strategy. Of course, we have hats on there, and then make sure to check us out on Instagram again. But lots of stuff to offer. We're always coming out with new things, and this isn't the end of it. We have more things coming soon. Make sure to check us out.